After being disappointed in the direction Monolithsoft had taken the series with Xenoblade Chronicles X, when I found out they were returning to the original formula, I was over the moon with excitement. But with the first game as a near flawless masterpiece, could this game possibly live up to the standards set by its predecessor? Let's find out as I look back on 2017's Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Development for Xenoblade Chronicles 2 actually began in 2014, before Xenoblade Chronicles X was even finished. With the Wii U a commercial failure, the new game would be planned for the next Nintendo system. However, with development starting so early, the team had no idea what the new system would be capable of, and would build the game simply on predictions on what the new hardware was going to be like. Focus would soon turn to making the game more closely resemble that of the original Xenoblade, after the changes implemented in Xenoblade Chronicles X received negative fan feedback. This meant a stronger focus on story and character, and less focus on customization and open worlds. With one HD game already under their belt, Monolithsoft would recycle a lot of Xenoblade Chronicles X's assets to speed up development, and with the scope of the game being much smaller, development of the new game would only take half the time compared with previous Xenoblade games. With a stronger focus on character and story, facial expressions became a big focus for the art team. The lead character designer this time would be Masatsugu Saito, who only had a few anime titles under his belt when he was brought on for his first ever video game project. Saito was chosen for his expressive character designs, which had been somewhat lacking in the previous Xeno games, even going back as far as Xenogears. While Saito designed the main characters, Takahashi would seek out renowned Square Enix artist Tetsuya Nomura to design the game's villains. Takahashi had mentored Nomura back during his days at Square, and had wanted to collaborate with him for over 20 years, but had been deprived due to Nomura's work on the Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts series. Along with Saito and Nomura, a whole myriad of other artists would be brought on to design the different Blade characters in-game, including Kunihiko Tanaka, who had designed the Cosmos Blade, and Takahashi's wife Kira Tanaka, returning to the series after being absent since Xenosaga Episode 2. Yurichio Takeda and Kazuho Hyodo would both return from Xenoblade Chronicles X to write the story alongside Takahashi. With all three being experienced Xeno writers, the three would quickly develop a script, with Takahashi writing the main plot, while Takeda and Hyodo would flesh out the even and odd chapters respectively. Takeda would comment on the final script, saying that it had the most Tetsuya Takahashi flair to date. Funnily, to bring the whole project together, Core Kashima would direct the game alongside Nintendo's Genki Yokota, returning for a third time. In late 2016, the Nintendo Switch would be revealed to the world, to much excitement, and the game would be set to release on the console in its first year on the market. The game would first be shown off at the 2017 January Switch presentation, alongside other early Switch games. This created a lot of interest around the series, which up until that point had been quite the niche name. This meant that Xenoblade Chronicles 2 would be taking up the role as the main JRPG to define the system's launch, a very prestigious position for a series which only 7 years earlier was on its deathbed. With the game going back to its roots, it seemed fitting that Nintendo of Europe would again handle the localization. To prevent a repeat of Xenoblade Chronicles X's censorship controversy, Nintendo of Europe would work in tandem with the staff at Monolithsoft to make sure all content was appropriate for the game's teenage rating. As a result of this, the game was localized while in development, and this allowed Xenoblade Chronicles 2 to become the first Xeno game to release worldwide on the 1st of December 2017. The announcement of a new Xenoblade less than 2 years after the last one came as a shock to me and my friends. I can still remember being convinced that they would not make its December release date, after how long the last two games took to make. However, as time went on, the game looked more and more likely to meet its release date, and with more info coming out that this would be a return to form for the series, my excitement went through the roof. In April that year, I would upload my Xeno series Evolution 1998 to 2017 video to express my hype for this game, followed by 2 ranking videos, and a discussion on why I was excited for this game. Realising that I wanted to make more videos around the Xeno series, in August I took down my 4 videos off my personal channel and re-uploaded them onto my new channel called Xeno Sanctum, named after a Xeno fanfiction I once wrote. So in some respects, this game is responsible for this channel existing. With this game being possibly one of, if not my most hyped game of all time, could it possibly live up to my expectations? Let's find out. The story begins with another recount. Wait, no it doesn't. What is this? We can't just jump straight into the story. Where's the background info dump that may or may not be relevant to the main plot later on? Anyway, let's start this again. The story begins in the present day, where we meet our main protagonist, Rex, as he scavenges for treasure at the bottom of the Cloud Sea, a giant ocean of clouds that spans the entire planet. Rex returns to the surface with an old crate using a crane attached to a floating island. The floating island turns out to be a talking dragon-like titan named Azuda, who Rex refers to as Gramps. Rex then opens the crate expecting to find loot, but instead finds a large shrimp creature which attacks him. Luckily, Rex has a sword and is able to kill the monster. After defeating the monster, Rex scavenges up what little treasure was in the box and cooks up the monster for food. While preparing dinner, Rex recounts the history of his world, Olres, to the player. Oh, so I guess there is a recount. Kind of. Anyway, originally the people of Olres used to live in Elysium, a paradise located at the top of a giant world tree which stands in the middle of the Cloud Sea. However, for some reason the people were cast out and are now forced to live on the backs of titans, which wade through the Cloud Sea. However, the titans are beginning to die out. In fact, during his meal, Rex sees one nearby, pass away and sink into the Cloud Sea, never to resurface. After the meal, Rex and Gramps make their way to the Argentum Trade Guild to sell their finds. After making a few credits, Rex sends most of his earnings back to his hometown in Letheria. He is about to leave when he's approached by Pepunin, a Nopon who works with the guild's chairman, Bana. Pepunin informs Rex that the chairman wants him for a job. Rex goes to meet the giant Nopon chairman, who introduces Rex to a group of 3 mysterious drivers, people who wield special weapons known as blades, which take the form of creatures. Bana explains that the drivers requested a salvager from Letheria, and Jin, the leader of the drivers, explained that they specifically wanted Rex to salvage a wreckage of a ship located in a remote part of the Cloud Sea. Rex immediately agrees without a second thought when Bana offers him 200,000 gold, with 100,000 gold in advance. Nia, the young female driver of the group, laughs when Rex accepts the offer on a whim and teases Rex's age and immaturity. To test out Rex, Malos, the black dress driver, attacks Rex, who deflects Malos' attacks. Showing his competence with a sword, the 3 agree to take Rex on. Afterwards, Rex meets up with Gramps and explains his mission to him. Gramps disapproves of Rex's actions and tells him that he should not take on a mission without first knowing who his clients are. However, Rex doesn't listen and instead goes off with the 3 drivers and a bunch of other salvagers to journey to the side of the wreckage. At the wreckage, Rex and the other salvagers work together to raise the ship to the surface. Once on the surface, Rex joins forces with the 3 drivers to descend into the ship's hull. Deep in the ship, Rex is tasked to open a door which only he, as a Letherian, can open. Once through the door, Rex finds himself face to face with a fancy red blade, and behind it a girl in a stasis chamber. Tantalised by the green gem in the middle of the sword, Rex reaches out to touch it. Malos yells at Rex not to touch it, just as Rex's finger makes contact. In response, Jin rushes up to Rex and stabs him in the back, killing him. When Rex awakens, he finds himself in a field. Looking around, he sees the girl from the stasis chamber standing on top of a hill. Approaching her, the girl introduces herself as Pyra, as Rex realises that she is a blade. Pyra explains that they are in her memory of Elysium, the paradise on top of the world tree, and the place of her birth. Pyra then asks Rex if he can take her back there, and in return she'll give part of her life force to revive Rex. Rex agrees and a bond is made between the two. Back outside, Malos carries the status chamber of Pyra out of the ship and orders Nia to kill the remaining salvagers to eliminate any witnesses of them getting their hands on Pyra. Nia, who is already shocked that Jin killed Rex, refuses to comply with such an insane order. Suddenly Pyra awakens and bursts out of the stasis chamber as Rex comes blasting out of the ship's hull, wielding Pyra's blade and shouting his famous line, "Ah-ya." Furious, Malos attacks Rex as the other salvagers make their escape. Malos, being a more skilled driver, is able to best Rex, when suddenly Nia, who has had enough, jumps in to protect Rex with her blade Dromark. Jin's ship, the Monolithsoft, then shows up and opens fire on Rex and Nia, and it seems all is lost when Gramps shows up and rescues Rex and Nia, and their blades, and makes an escape. Malos orders a pursuit, but Jin calls it off, saying that they will get another chance to capture Pyra, who he refers to as the Aegis. I don't know about you, but from the first few hours of this game, I was way more into the story than I ever was with the last game. If you haven't had a chance to see the story, I again recommend either the wiki summaries, YouTube cutscene compilations, or just play the game. If there is one word to describe Xenoblade Chronicles 2's art style, it would be anime. While the series always had an anime aesthetic, going right back to Xenogears, it was never quite this anime. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 goes fully into anime tropes. Catgirls, over-the-top facial features, winning by the power of friendship, you name it. While some people are turned off by this new look, I, as a general fan of anime, welcome the new look to the series. Facial features were always a bit of a weak point, with the characters of the older Xeno titles often looking quite wooden even in the most emotional scenes. As a result, I don't mind that they are dialed up to 11 here. The new art style is now much more reminiscent of the Tales series, leading to me and my friends often jokingly calling this game Tales of Xenoblade. With the game going back to the traditional Xenoblade formula, we are again going back to the original world layout. We no longer have the giant continuous world map. Instead, each Titan is its own small open world that can be explored in a similar manner to Xenoblade 1. Despite the game no longer putting the main focus on exploration, there is still lots of places to discover across these giant Titan bodies, and you will want to discover them all, as the world of Allrest is beautiful. Walking across the bodies of giant creatures, with the Cloud Sea and World Tree as a background, makes for arguably one of the most visually stunning games in the series, and this, combined with the bright flashy looks of the blades and drivers, makes Xenoblade Chronicles 2 my favourite looking game in the series. Now, before I go any further, I should explain what exactly a blade is, as practically the entire game is built around these moe anthropomorphized weapons. So basically, in the game there are these things called core crystals, and when a person resonates with one it turns into a creature, usually a humanoid, which comes with a weapon that the person, now called a driver, can wield into battle. Weird, yes I know, but if you hang out in the anime community long enough, you'll realise everything at one point will be turned into an anime character. It's basically the anime version of Rule 34. The game's main cast consists of 5 drivers, with the occasional guest character joining the team. Each driver comes with a unique blade, who supports the driver as well as plays a major role in the story. This kind of leaves the weird situation where there are 10 main characters but only 5 playable characters. Characters can recruit more blades to their cores via random core crystals found throughout the world. Every driver, Partora, can resonate with these core crystals to summon a blade. These blades usually come in the form of generic blades which appear as a grey person or animal. However, if you're lucky you may summon a rare blade, which appears as a unique character with a unique personality and weapon. Note, some core crystals come with a predetermined rare blade already in them. This system is quite reminiscent of a mobile gacha game. Perhaps I should be comparing this game more with Cancold than Tales. The likelihood of getting a rare blade is determined by a complicated formula, and there are whole other videos on this topic. You can increase your chance of scoring a rare blade via more powerful core crystals, as well as improving your character's stats. However, be prepared to throw your controller on the ground when your 500th legendary core summon with max luck and justice still doesn't score you Cosmos. It feels like along with the gacha game mechanics they brought gacha game probabilities as well, and this is one of my biggest gripes with the game. Once you get blades, you can customise them, as well as their driver, via accessories and skills. Art points return from the previous game, now called weapon points, or WP, and can be used to strengthen your driver's arts on the different blades. Skill points also return and are now used to improve your driver's stats and abilities on the special web-like grid. Blades also have this web-like grid, however their skills are learnt via tasks instead of skill points. These tasks range from perform a certain move in battle to finding X number of collectibles. In the case of rare blades, a whole mini side quest which explores the blade's character, giving you one reason to attempt to find all the rare blades. Along with the blade side quests, normal side quests return from the previous game. With blade skilled quests taking up a majority of the grindy quests, the regular side quests tend to be a bit more detailed with multiple parts and a decent narrative, which is a nice change from the plethora of hunt and gather quests in the last 2 games. Along with regular side quests, the game also offers special mercenary missions. These tasks will involve sending your blades off to complete a task by themselves. Along with getting rewards for these missions, you might also unlock some of your blade's skills. Getting back to collectibles though, these have been changed a lot since the last 2 games. They are still found as blue orbs scattered across the land, but they are now few and far between. Instead of just picking it up, you must first scavenge the orb which will then drop multiple collectibles. I'm not the biggest fan of this new style, as the best part about picking up collectibles in the last 2 games is how you could walk right over them on your way to another task. Now you have to stop and wait until your character scavenges up the materials. Worse yet, the Collectopedia is now gone, so you can no longer recall which items you have found or have yet to find. However, you can improve your chances of finding these collectibles via the game's new mechanic, field skills. These work like hidden machines from the old Pokemon games, and see your blades use their abilities to complete tasks, from the aforementioned finding rare collectibles and scavenge spots, to creating new pathways. These field skills take a lot of interesting forms, but unfortunately suffer from the same problem that Pokemon's HMs suffer from. Not only can the field skills be a pain to unlock, a lot of them are held by blades that you just might not have had any luck in summoning. If random blade summoning is not your thing, you can always play as Tora, the Noppin of the team, who uses the artificial blade Poppy. Being a robot, Poppy has some unique customization options that allow you to play around with the style of blade she is. These customization parts are predominantly gained via the minigame Tiger Tiger, which will see you die for customization parts in an 8-bit treasure hunting game. It's nice to see minigames return to the series, as a lot of other modern JRPGs seem to be dropping the concept. As I alluded to earlier, the blades designs are done by a myriad of artists, making them look very different from one another. This is a point of contention in the community, with some people liking the combination of talent while others detest the inconsistency in the character designs. Personally, I'm not too opinionated. There are blades I like, there are blades I don't like, and there are blades I question how they got into an M15+ rated game. This also applies to the Aegis herself, as Pyra can come across to me as a little over-sexualized in her design. I do know of the concerns some people had with her designer, Saito, being involved with hentai. However, even if the characters have some questionable designs, the game does not play too much into it. Mostly. This does bring us to the topic of immaturity, with the protagonist Rex being one of the youngest protagonists in a Xeno game at 15. In fact, most of the cast is pretty young, and this can be somewhat of a problem when it comes to the game's more serious moments. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 definitely dabbles a lot more into comedy compared with previous Xeno games, and while a part of me is annoyed that it didn't keep to the series' more serious tone, another part of me just enjoys a good laugh, and I would be lying if I said this game's story did not entertain me quite a lot. With localization again being handled by Nintendo of Europe, we are again treated to a plethora of British talent, as well as talent from other nations too. In fact, the localization team would go all in on the thick accents, giving each Titan's populace a different accent. This goes a long way to giving character and personality to the world. The only issue I have with the accents is again with Pyra. I don't know about other people, but Pyra's somewhat generic American accent doesn't quite fit with the other cast members, but that might just be me. But now about the characters' looks and voices, let's get into the battle section. And warning, this might be a long one. Despite returning to the formula set out in the first Xenoblade, battles have arguably gone through an even bigger change than what they experienced in X. Let's start with what hasn't changed. The party is back to the usual 3, with you controlling one character while the AI controls the other 2. Auto-attacking is back again, but here's where things begin to change. Auto-attacks can no longer be used while on the move, and now consist of a 3-hit combo that will be reset if you happen to move. This makes combat a lot more static, as you'll no longer be moving around all the time. You now only have access to 3 arts, which are locked to the face buttons, with a 4th art that can be switched in and out while not in battle. Arts are now recharged by auto-attacking, rather than time, in a similar manner to talent arts in the first Xenoblade. If an art is used just after an auto-attack, you'll get a cancel, which will do greater damage and will fill the special gauge. The later in the combo the auto-attack is cancelled, the greater the special gauge will fill, making cancels on the 3rd hit the most optimal. The special gauge can be filled to a maximum of 3 charges, with a 4th becoming available if the player has max affinity with the blade and waits for a bit. Specials can also be cancelled off auto attacks, as well as off arts to increase damage. Once a special hits an enemy, you'll start a blade combo, which is this game's primary battle mechanic. A blade combo consists of 3 specials being used in a row, with each subsequent hit requiring a special of rank equal to or higher than the position in the combo, aka the first hit can use any special, the second hit must be a level 2 or higher, and the 3rd and final hit must be a level 3 or 4. The specials must also match the required element displayed in the top corner of the screen. For example, when I use an electric special, I will have the option to either use a fire or another electric special. As long as I use that special before the timer runs out, I will go into the second stage, in which I can use a wind or ice level 3 special to finish the combo. However, if the timer gauge expires, the combo resets, and we have to start from the beginning. This makes it difficult to do a blade combo solo and requires you to work with your team. Upon completing a combo, an orb will begin orbiting the enemy to match the 3rd hit's element, and will seal one of the enemy's abilities. A total of 8 orbs can be placed on the enemy with 1 of each element. To help in the completion of a blade combo, each of your drivers can have up to 3 blades equipped at one time and can quickly switch between which blade is active. To help even more with the combos, your AR companions will usually bring out the blade which can continue the combo. Usually. Darn it Rex, I want the fire blade! Along with blade combos, braking and toppling return, along with the new launching and smashing abilities to create driver combos. These must be used one after another in the stated order, but yield rewards like money, items and HP potions. While there are regular healing arts, a lot of healing is done via HP potions, which will be dropped by the enemy via driver combos or by certain arts and specials. By walking over them, the party will immediately heal, and you will need to heal as your health points are quite low compared with the enemies. By applying blade and driver combos at the same time, the party will trigger fusion combos. These will not only give you battle bonuses, but will also reset the timer for the next special in the blade combo. You also get a cool narration explaining what type of fusion combo you just achieved. To master fusion combos, you'll need to understand your blades. Each blade has an archetype, such as axe, katana and spear. Each driver has a different set of arts for each weapon type, such that one might be able to topple with a spear while another smashes. One might have a healing spell, while another has an AoE attack. This blade assignment will be key to succeed in battle. Once you have mastered all types of combos, you can then bring out your most powerful technique, the chain attack. Chain attacks work in a very similar manner to how they did in the first Xenoblade. However, here you use your specials rather than arts. As you use your specials, you will damage the orbs that were placed on the enemy via the blade combos. If you are successful in destroying one of these, you will gain a second round of chain attacks. This process will repeat for each orb destroyed, leading to a possibility of a 9-round chain attack with a ridiculous 27 hits, which not even Super Boss is likely to survive. When I first started playing Xenoblade Chronicles 2, I did not understand combat at all. However, after watching some YouTube tutorials, I have to say it is arguably the best in the series. Its complexity might lead you to compare it with Xenosaga Episode 2. However, I disagree. While Episode 2 forces you to spend countless turns stocking for a powerful attack, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 will always see you dealing damage to the enemy. And while I was initially annoyed at the game limiting my options to only 3 arts instead of 8, in reality, having 3 blades on you at all times means you really have 9 arts plus specials, giving you plenty of options to approach combat. So, what don't I like about the combat? Well, that would be the enemy interruptions. While previous Xenoblade games would occasionally have additional enemies during the fight, it was never quite this bad. I swear that frickin' territorial robot will actively seek you out while you're in the middle of a fight and one-shot you. And I haven't even mentioned the reinforcements some enemies will keep bringing in to draw the fight out as long as possible. But hey, at least the music's still good. It wouldn't be a return to form without the original music team returning. Takahashi would not repeat his mistake from Xenoblade 1 and would hire Yasunori Mitsuda straight away to oversee the game's soundtrack. Mitsuda would also be joined by Ace Plus and Manami Kyoda, who also returned from the first game, and together the team would brainstorm on how to develop the new game's soundscape while remaining true to the image of the first Xenoblade. The answer was brass. Okay, perhaps I'm biased being a trombone player and all, but Xenoblade Chronicles 2's soundtrack is amazing. In fact, I struggle to say this, but I think that it's even better than the first games. For nearly every track in Xenoblade Chronicles 1, there is a track here that is bigger and better. From the amazing overworld theme of Gormott to the new Engage the Enemy piece Counterattack, Xenoblade Chronicles 2's score is just so good. Along with the new improved tracks, we also have a bunch of guest performers such as the Irish chamber choir Anuna, which Mitsuda had wanted to perform with since the 90s, likely due to his interest in Irish folk music. While not my personal favourites, these pieces go to show how wide the variety of music in this game is. This is coming from the same series as the original Xenoblade, whose soundtrack was already quite diverse. If there is one point I could put against the music, it's the ending song, One Last You, performed by Jennifer Bird. I have nothing against Bird as she puts on an amazing performance, but it never quite reaches the heights of the other Xeno ending songs, and that's likely due to Jennifer Bird being an acoustics artist. I'm sorry, but I never really got into Ed Sheeran or any of the other acoustic artists, as I like my orchestral music and I find acoustics just a bit too empty. But hey, they finally gave us the ability to adjust the sound volumes after only 19 years. Starting the origins of this game, I somewhat get the feeling that Monolithsoft made this game reluctantly as a result of negative fan feedback on Xenoblade Chronicles X. However, even if that was the case, I am glad they made this game, because Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is awesome. This game manages to capture the essence of the original Xenoblade while bringing its own flavour both in story and gameplay. If Xenoblade Chronicles X began my fallout with Nintendo, then Xenoblade Chronicles 2 most certainly ended it. 2017 was a great year, full of several great Nintendo titles, and Xenoblade Chronicles 2, finishing the year off, really established this as one of the best years in gaming. Well, at least for me. I still have fond memories of staying at my grandparents' place for work and playing this game on my TV, which I had precariously set up in the middle of their guest bedroom. While this game does a lot to capture the experience I had with the original Xenoblade, to me it doesn't quite come to exceeding it. I generally feel like Xenoblade Chronicles 2's flaws are not as superficial as they were in Xenoblade Chronicles 1. The gacha mechanics suck, and the story's lighter tone, while enjoyable, is not necessarily what I would associate with the Xeno series as a whole. So, while I love the art style and music of this game, I still give the crown of best Xeno game to the first Xenoblade Chronicles. However, this game most definitely comes in a close second. And that about wraps up my review of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Oh wait, I didn't mention DLC. While technically Xenoblade Chronicles X was the first game to have paid DLC, it was all included in the Western release. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 on the other hand offers a ton of extra content for the bargain price of 45 Australian dollars. And this includes extra side quests as well as a ton of new blades, including Shulk and Elmer from the past games. While this content already justifies the price tag, Monolithsoft would go above and beyond to include an entire new game using the base game's engine, so come back next time as I look at 2018's Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Torn of the Golden Country.